The day my world shattered began like any other. The sun rose, casting a warm glow over the city, and for a fleeting moment, everything felt perfect. I had everything I could ask for: my thriving business, a beautiful wife, and a future that seemed certain. But beneath the surface, cracks had begun to form, subtle at first, like whispers in the dark. My wife, Elena, had been my rock, the woman who had stood by me through every challenge, every success. Our love had been everything I had ever dreamed of: passionate, unwavering, and full of promise. But there was something different about her in recent months. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. The way her eyes seemed distant when they once sparkled with affection, the late nights she claimed were filled with work, the sudden emotional distance that crept between us, even in the quiet moments we once shared. I had been too consumed by the demands of my business to notice the signs, too blind to the storm brewing, just under the surface. Then one night, when the weight of my suspicions grew unbearable, I uncovered the truth. It wasn't just a fleeting moment of weakness. It was a full-blown affair. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted with my heart and my future, had betrayed me. My heart felt as though it had been ripped from my chest. In that instant, everything changed. The life we had built together, the dreams we shared, all came crashing down in a flash of painful clarity. I couldn't fathom it then, but that betrayal would not only destroy me, it would destroy her, too. It started small. At first, I thought I was imagining things, paranoia creeping in during the quiet moments of the night. Elena had always been the heart of our relationship, the person who would remind me that work wasn't everything. She was the one who would push me to take a break, to enjoy the little things. But lately, she'd seemed different, distant, even. I could see it in her eyes, the way she looked at me, like she was seeing someone else, someone I didn't recognize. It wasn't obvious, not at first. It was in the tiny gestures that spoke volumes. The way she no longer smiled when I came home after long days at the office. The late-night meetings she had to attend for a job, even though she was always home early before. The texts that seemed to be more frequent, yet she would quickly put her phone down whenever I entered the room. There were moments when I'd catch her staring off into space, her mind clearly elsewhere, and it stung. One night, the suspicions grew too strong to ignore. Elena had gone to bed early. Her usual way of avoiding the conversations we used to have at night, the ones that would stretch into the early hours about our dreams, our plans for the future. I stayed up in the study, hunched over a stack of paperwork, but the nagging feeling wouldn't let me focus. Something was wrong. I knew it. I shouldn't have done it. I knew I shouldn't have. But in that moment, when doubt clouded my every thought, I opened her phone. I'd never had reason to distrust her before, but now, I needed to know. Her password, one I had known for years, was still the same. It was almost as if she had expected me to find out, to uncover the truth. I scrolled through her messages. At first, it was just the usual text with friends, the occasional family check-in. Then I saw his name, Alex. I didn't recognize it at first, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd heard it before. There were dozens of texts between them, flirty, playful exchanges that made my stomach churn. And then I saw it, the one that broke me. I can't wait to see you tonight. I miss you so much. This secret is killing me, but I wouldn't have it any other way. My hands went cold. My vision blurred. My heart pounded in my chest as the words sank in. She'd been seeing him for months. My beautiful, intelligent wife had been carrying on an affair with someone else, and I had been too blind to see it. I dropped the phone on the desk, my mind racing, my pulse quickening. How could she do this to me? To us? The person I had trusted with everything had torn my world apart with a single, careless act. It was as if the ground beneath me had cracked open, and the life I had worked so hard to build was slipping away from me. I needed to confront her. I needed answers. But as I stared at her sleeping form across the room, something dark inside me stirred. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about revenge, and I wasn't sure I could stop it. The truth hit harder than I ever could have imagined. Not only had Elena betrayed me, but her actions tore through everything I had worked for, my heart, my mind, and most painfully, my business. It wasn't just a personal crisis. It was a financial one, and I didn't see it coming. At first, I tried to push through the pain. I threw myself into work, hoping that if I focused on my company, it would somehow ease a gnawing ache in my chest. After all, my business had always been my passion. I had poured years into building it, sacrificed countless hours, and watched it grow into something I was proud of. But the truth is, I was too distracted. My thoughts were consumed by Elena's betrayal, the affair that seemed to haunt me every waking moment. I began missing important meetings. Emails went unanswered. Deals that I had once closed without breaking a sweat started slipping through my fingers. The first signs were small, just a missed opportunity here, or a delayed project there. But they added up quickly. Soon, I found myself drowning in a sea of missed deadlines and frustrated clients. My employees, who had once respected me, began to notice the change. The confidence that had fueled the company's growth began to wane, and with it, the morale of the entire office. Then came the day that felt like a punch to the gut. One of my biggest clients, an account I had worked tirelessly to secure, called to cancel our partnership. The reason? We just don't feel confident in your ability to deliver anymore. I remember the call, the way my mind spun, my thoughts clouded by disbelief. The words echoed in my ears, each one like a cruel reminder of how far I had fallen. This client had been my lifeline, and now they were pulling away. I hung up the phone, staring blankly at my desk. A chill ran down my spine as I realized the full extent of what was happening. This wasn't just a business slump. It was the result of my neglect. Every late night I had spent trying to salvage my marriage, every argument I had buried in favor of avoiding the truth, had taken a toll on my work. And Elena, her affair, had become the final blow. The next few weeks were a blur of panic and frustration. I tried to salvage what was left, but it was like trying to patch up a sinking ship with duct tape. The financial losses were mounting. The press was starting to pick up on the negative rumors about our operations, and suppliers were pulling back. One by one, contracts slipped away like sand through my fingers. It wasn't long before I had to make the impossible decision to let go of several key employees. Friends? Really? I could see the disappointment in their eyes as they packed up their desks, and it was a reflection of my own failure. All the while, Elena remained as distant as ever. She still played the part of the concerned wife, but I could see the emptiness in her eyes. I knew she was numb, just as I was. There was no love between us anymore, just a fragile facade we both maintained for the sake of appearances. But as the business crumbled, the cracks in our marriage grew wider. We were both living in a house of cards, and every day it felt like the slightest breeze would send it all tumbling down. I reached out to my business partners for help, but even they could sense the shift in me. My judgment was clouded, my energy drained. I was barely holding it together. The weight of Elena's betrayal, combined with the collapse of everything I had worked for, was suffocating. I started drinking more, using it as a temporary escape from the suffocating reality that my empire was falling apart. One evening, after yet another failed pitch to a potential investor, I found myself alone in my office, staring at the papers strewn across my desk. A sinking feeling settled in my chest. The numbers didn't add up. The company was too far gone. It was only a matter of time before I had to admit the truth. I was losing everything, my business, my wife, and the man I once was. In that moment, the anger that had been simmering beneath the surface boiled over. The betrayal, the financial ruin, the emotional destruction. It was all too much. I knew then that I couldn't keep trying to salvage what was broken. I needed to make things right, but not in the way I had once hoped. There was no rebuilding from this. The only thing left now was to make her pay for what she had done to me, to us, to everything. I'd never been a man driven by vengeance. I believed in fairness, in karma, in letting life balance itself out. But the betrayal cut deeper than I could have ever imagined. Elena had taken everything from me, my trust, my heart, and now my business. She had destroyed me, and with her affair, she had sealed her fate. I didn't want revenge at first. I just wanted answers, and for her to feel the hurt I had felt. But as the days dragged on, a darker desire began to take root in my soul. I wanted her to pay for what she had done to me. The first step was subtle. I didn't confront her directly. No, that would have been too easy. I wanted to make sure she felt the weight of her actions without giving her a chance to apologize, to explain herself. I watched her carefully, her every movement, her every word. I could feel the tension in the air whenever we were in the same room. I knew she was aware of the change in me. What she didn't know was that I was watching her closely, studying every detail, waiting for the right moment to strike. Then, one day, I found it the perfect opportunity to hit her where it would hurt the most. It came in the form of a business opportunity. An old acquaintance of mine, someone I had worked with years ago, had reached out to discuss a potential collaboration. The deal had the potential to lift me out of the financial hole I was in and put me back on track. But it wasn't just the financial aspect that made it perfect. It was the timing. The deal was tied to a joint venture between our company and a firm that Elena had worked closely with in the past. She had always been proud of her role in these partnerships, and this one was no exception. I used her pride against her. Without her knowledge, I arranged a meeting with the company's CEO, a man she had once considered a mentor. I told him everything about her affair, about how she had neglected her duties at work, how she had ruined our business. I painted her as someone who couldn't be trusted, someone whose personal life had started to seep into her professional one. At first, I didn't think it would work. The CEO was a professional, after all. But as I spoke, I could see the shift in his expression, the growing doubt in his eyes. I made sure to emphasize how damaging her actions had been, not just to me, but to the company, too. I didn't hold back. It wasn't just about destroying her. It was about taking away the one thing she had left, her career. By the time I was done, it was clear that Elena's involvement in the project was at risk. The deal had been put on ice, and her position was on the verge of being compromised. The look on her face when I told her the news was indescribable. She didn't know how to react. Part of her was furious. She accused me of sabotaging her career, of being petty and vindictive. The other part of her seemed broken. She had always been the one to hold the power in the relationship, the one who made the decisions. But now, I was the one in control. I had taken everything from her, her business, her reputation, her security. But I wasn't finished yet. In the weeks that followed, I started digging into her personal finances. I knew she kept some secrets. She always had. And sure enough, I found them. Her personal accounts, hidden debts, and risky investments that she had kept from me. I leaked the information to the press, making sure the details were sensational enough to get attention. It wasn't just about exposing her infidelity anymore. It was about exposing her hypocrisy, her lies, and the double life she had been leading. I knew the media would eat it up, and they did. Her once perfect image shattered. The woman who had always been the epitome of grace and success was now a cautionary tale. I watched as her world crumbled, piece by piece. Her friends turned on her. Her colleagues distanced themselves, and the public humiliation was almost too much to bear. I could see the desperation in her eyes every time we crossed paths. But I didn't flinch. I didn't feel sympathy. Then the final blow came. I contacted the authorities, tipping them off about a shady business transaction she had been involved in during one of her side ventures. It was a small infraction, but enough to tarnish her reputation. They launched an investigation, and before long, her name was being dragged through the mud in the headlines. In the end, she was put under scrutiny, her career ruined, her reputation destroyed. I saw her, once this powerful, confident woman, reduced to nothing, and still, she came to me, begging for mercy. She cried, apologized, and swore she didn't mean to hurt me. But the damage had already been done. She had chosen her path, and I had made her pay for it. But as I watched her fall, something unexpected happened. A part of me, the part that had once loved her so deeply, fell hollow. The satisfaction I thought I would feel was fleeting. Revenge had tasted sweet at first, but it quickly turned sour. I had taken everything from her, but in doing so, I had lost a part of myself, too. The man who had built a life from the ground up had been reduced to a vengeful shadow of who he once was. And in that moment, I realized revenge doesn't heal a broken heart. It only leaves you with a void that no amount of punishment can fill. Elena's downfall came swiftly. The carefully constructed life she had built, one of success, status, and control, crumbled like a house of cards. And for all her initial bravado, the weight of it was too much for her to bear. At first, she fought back. She blamed me for everything, insisted that I was the one destroying her. The accusations flowed like venom, and part of me almost wished I could believe them. But deep down, I knew the truth. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. And lie she did. Her public image, once pristine, now stained beyond repair. It started with the business. The deal I had sabotaged, an opportunity she had held so dear, was just the beginning. The CEO, who had once trusted her, began pulling the strings. No longer was she the confident, accomplished woman she had once been. She became a liability, a tarnished asset. Word spread fast that she had become a liability in the industry. No one wanted to work with a woman whose personal life was now a public spectacle. Companies that had once courted her for partnerships were now backing away, some citing concerns over professionalism and personal distractions. Then the media got involved. When I leaked the financial details, her hidden debts, the risky ventures, her world of secrets and lies was exposed to the public. At first, she denied everything. She told her friends, her colleagues, and even the press that it was all fabricated. But it didn't matter. The damage had been done. The headlines were relentless. Cheating wife and businesswoman, secret debts exposed, and scandalous affair leads to professional ruin. They were everywhere, each word like a weight on her shoulders, pushing her deeper into despair. Her friends and family, those who had once praised her for being the strong, independent woman they admired, started to distance themselves. Some of her closest friends stopped returning her calls. Her mother, who had always been her biggest supporter, looked at her with disappointment in her eyes. Elena was no longer the woman who had it all. She was the woman who had lost it all. And then came the legal troubles. The shady transactions I had tipped off the authorities about had begun to catch up with her. The investigation started out as a whisper became a full-blown inquiry, and soon Elena was forced to face the consequences of her actions. She tried to put on a brave face, but I could see the cracks beginning to show. The woman who had once been so confident, so self-assured, was now a shell of herself, sullen, anxious, and constantly looking over her shoulder. When the police finally came knocking, it was a final blow. She was questioned, her reputation dragged to the mud even further. Although she wasn't arrested immediately, the damage was clear. Her career was over, her personal life in ruins, and her dignity shattered. In those final moments, when she came to me, pleading for forgiveness, I saw the vulnerability in her eyes. The same eyes that once held so much love for me, now clouded with regret and fear. But it was too late. There was no redemption. The woman who had destroyed me, who had shattered my world, was now a broken version of herself, crawling at my feet, begging for mercy. "I'm sorry," she whispered, but the words fell hollow. "Please forgive me." I didn't say a word. I simply looked at her, my heart heavy with the realization that I hadn't found peace in her fall. There was no satisfaction in seeing her broken, only a bitter emptiness that lingered like smoke in the air. As she walked away from me for the last time, I understood something I hadn't before. Revenge might have brought me justice, but it cost me more than I was willing to lose. Elena had been my love, my partner, and even in her betrayal, she was still a part of me. And as she disappeared into the shadows of her own ruin, I realized that her downfall was my own, too. The months that followed Elena's downfall were a blur. I focused on rebuilding, both my life and my business, but neither felt the same. The office that had once been a place of energy and excitement now felt cold, sterile. The walls, once adorned with success stories and accolades, seemed to mock me. Every decision I made felt like a shadow of the man I used to be. The anger, the drive for vengeance that had once consumed me, had faded, leaving only a hollow space inside. The business slowly recovered, but not in the way I had hoped. The clients I had lost were replaced, but the trust one had built, the fire that once fueled my every move, was gone. I had become a man driven by something darker, something that had drained the life out of me. The success I thought I would feel after winning my revenge, after watching Elena fall was nothing but a cold victory. It tasted like ash in my mouth. I still saw her sometimes. Not often, but enough to remind me of everything I had lost. Elena, once the woman who stood beside me, was now a shadow of her former self. She had retreated from the world, too ashamed to face anyone. I didn't feel pity for her not anymore, but there were moments when I wondered if she, too, was searching for peace, searching for a way to move on. I couldn't forgive her, not yet, but I had to let go of the hatred. I realized that in my quest for revenge, I had allowed her to continue controlling me, even from afar. She had taken everything from me, but I had allowed it to define me. I had to stop living in the past, stop letting her betrayal govern my every thought. The day I let go came quietly, unexpectedly. I was standing in the office, looking out over the city, when it hit me. I wasn't the man I had been. The pain of the betrayal, the devastation of losing everything had been real, but I had survived. And it was time to start living again, not for the memory of what had been, but for what could still be. It wasn't an easy decision. There were still days when the anger flared up, when I wondered if I had made a mistake in letting her go so completely. But as time passed, the sting of her betrayal dulled. I started focusing on myself, on the things I had once loved before the world had been turned upside down. I began writing again, something I hadn't done in years. I traveled, reconnected with old friends, and slowly, I started to find joy in the things I had once taken for granted. I never told Elena that I had forgiven her. I never needed to. It wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. In the end, I learned that revenge, no matter how sweet it seemed at the time, wasn't the answer. It doesn't heal a broken heart. It doesn't restore trust. It only leaves you empty, chasing shadows of a life that no longer exists. And as I stood on that balcony, watching the sun dip behind the horizon, I realized that the most important lesson I had learned wasn't about forgiveness. It was about finding peace, not in others, but within myself.